Who-dats. Welcome to the podcast you've been waiting for. Great perspective and exclusive interviews.
It's a hard job for those guys because it's happening fast.
The kind of Saints insight and fun commentary you won't get anywhere else.
We've got plenty of technology to speed things up.
It's time to kick off your Been There, Done That Saints podcast, where we hand it off to our host, Mike Nabors, and Super Bowl winning linebacker, Scott Shanle.
Proud of these guys.
Marcus Mariota joining Derek Carr. All we need now is Tom Brady for the 3-quarterback formation, man. Spider 3 QB banana, man. Knock on wood if you're with me.
I'm trying to knock Frank Caliendo. You got to love Frank Caliendo as we welcome you into another Been There, Done That podcast. We have free agency to get to. We have CBA. We have great stuff from Drew Brees. We talked to a Boston station about Tom Brady. But let me bring in my partner's producer, Justin Thomas. Have you sanitized for this show, Justin?
Oh, yes. Everything's clean.
Okay, good. Shanle, if I would have told you a year ago, let's say March of 2019, a year from now, we're going to have this coronavirus. We're all going to be quarantined. They're going to cancel March Madness. They're going to cancel the Masters. They're going to delay NBA, NHL, MLB, or Tom Brady's going to be a Tampa Bay Buccaneer. Which one would you have been more surprised by?
And I don't know. They all would have been close, but no, we are in unprecedented times. I never thought, a lot of us would be quarantined. Our kids would probably not be going back to school. The shutdown, everything hopefully does not go into a great economic recession. It's absolutely crazy, and it keeps getting crazier. I would have never thought in January when this first came out that it was starting in Asia that it would have went worldwide and caused the kind of pandemic that it has. It's been nuts.
Yeah, I'm not making light of it at all, of course, but we have to have somewhat of a release. And the weird thing is sports usually is our release. When we've had unbelievable times in this country, whether it's 9/11 or crises, sports has been our escape, and now we can't escape. And, we've all seen the hurricanes that have hit New Orleans, and I live in Tampa, and we've seen that. And we always, different parts of the country have different natural disasters. But the amazing thing about this, Shanle, is that we're all under the same umbrella in this. It's not like, we're looking at a part of the country that's dealing with the hurricane. Everybody's dealing with this right now in different ways.
Yeah, and we are all truly in times like this, you all become part of the same team. It doesn't matter who you are, where you are, like you said, Mike, what your socioeconomic status is. We're all affected by this. And I think as it has gone on, people have taken it more serious and started to quarantine more and prevent the spread. I hope it's starting to slow down. I hope it's starting to trend the other way and not having an uptick. But it's good to see that the majority of America is taking it serious and doing the right thing and all playing by the same rules.
Yeah, Greg Hill, WEEI-FM, had an interesting interview with Drew Brees. We're going to get to that and his thoughts about Tom Brady. It was before Brady signed with the Bucs. We'll get to Brady and the Bucs in a second. I want to get Shanley's thoughts on the new CBA agreement. I know you're very passionate about that. But let's begin with the New Orleans Saints. No surprise. They have a tender offer to Taysom Hill. Drew Brees is locked in, took a very team-friendly contract. But the first move they made was David Onyemata, $9 million per year. I like this move. He's a guy we've talked about for so many podcasts in the last couple of years. Real underrated guy in this defense, Shanle.
Yeah, David's been a very underrated player, and I think if you sit there and just watch D-line play, his hustle, his effort, his strength, he's one of the strongest guys I've seen. I think a lot of guys in that locker room would list him as one of the strongest guys pound for pound they play with. He's made a lot of plays. He's done a lot of good things. He's been available, hasn't been hurt often, and filled in nicely when he had an opportunity a few years ago. And I think if he would have hit the free agent market, I think a lot of teams would have had bidding in for his service. So it was one of those players the Saints put a priority on, especially along that D-line, and I'm glad they got him locked up.
Then you have your former teammate Malcolm Jenkins back in the fold, and I know that was a popular move. And Sean Payton and Mickey Loomis have done a great job over the years, knowing when to let guys go. But a big mistake they made was Rob Ninkovich and then Malcolm Jenkins. And Sean Payton, to his credit, has admitted that. But my question to you, I love having Malcolm Jenkins back with the Saints, but Von Bell is a guy they also want back, and they may not be able to afford him. Were you surprised they brought back Malcolm Jenkins before maybe addressing Von Bell?
No, I wasn't. I was not surprised when I saw Malcolm wasn't returned to Philadelphia. The first thing I thought was the Saints. I was surprised they gave him a 4-year deal. Malcolm's going into his 12th year, so that's a lot of football. They gave him a really good contract, and part of it is probably because of his leadership, his ability to stabilize that back end and be a veteran leader in that room. I think the downfall for Vaughn was maybe they're letting him go to free agency and say, now bring back your best offer and we'll see if we can match it, because most of the guys have already signed during this free tampering period. So I don't know if the market hasn't been as high for Vaughn, but I think the thing that really hurt Vaughn was the play of Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. I think Chauncey developing last year into that in-the-box safety, that run support, physical safety, I think they view him as taking over that role for Vaughn, should Vaughn leave in free agency.
And, Malcolm Jenkins is a guy, to me, when he came on the scene, he was a rookie out of Ohio State, but he acted like a guy who'd been in the league 10 years. I mean, we like to have fun with Cam Jordan. We all love Cam Jordan, but he was a different kind of personality when he came in, kind of a fun-loving guy. And we've talked about in this podcast where, you and Will Smith and some of the veterans are like, really, this is our first-round draft pick? And then, of course, he became the player that he is today. But didn't Malcolm Jenkins have a different feel when he came in that locker room? He was a mature guy from the get-go.
Oh, yeah. Malcolm was one of those guys, wise beyond his years. Now, he was a first-round pick, kind of a corner safety hybrid, but Malcolm had a hard time getting on the field because we had a Pro Bowler in Roman Harper. Darren Sharper was making plays the first couple of years Malcolm was there. So everybody viewed Malcolm as, hey, is this guy going to pan out? Well, he had really good players in front of him, but he was a leader, watched a ton of film, was a pro's pro, took it very serious, and he didn't start to emerge until the time the Saints let him walk in free agency, and we all saw what he did in Philly. But yeah, he was one of those guys who was always wise beyond his years and a great leader.
And always wore the bow tie. I appreciate that about Malcolm Jenkins. Always walked to his own beat, and a very vocal player during the Colin Kaepernick controversy, but a measured guy who always gave thoughtful responses in many ways. And Sean Payton knows what he'll mean to that locker room. A.J. Klein goes to the Buffalo Bills, but on the linebacking core, Kiko Alonso's back. And, Anzalone should be healthy if training camp is a possibility, if they're going to have training camp. What do you think about the linebacking core? A.J. Klein, I don't think was a big surprise that they lose him, but Kiko Alonso, really a stable veteran for this team when they lost Anzalone last year, Shanle.
Yeah, AJ has been one of those guys who can play all three positions, and he's been a tough guy. He's had some injuries the last couple of years, but Sean McDermott, the Buffalo Bills head coach, was AJ's defensive coach in Carolina. So they ended up giving him a good contract. The Saints were never going to match it. But you're right, Alex Anzalone is the X factor in this whole linebacker equation. He is the guy who if he can stay healthy, I think he's a better linebacker than AJ, but he has to stay healthy because him on the field with Demario Davis, you said Kiko Alonso renegotiated his contract, lowered his salary. Those are three really good linebackers on the field at the same time, and really the league has become a two-linebacker league anymore anyway, so you're looking at really Alex and Demario at this point.
Yeah, the Saints capologists doing their thing with Michael Thomas and Teron Armstead restructuring their deals, and Drew Brees kind of took less, but he's going to get more money up front. So it works. Taysom Hill obviously looks to be back. They tendered him and gave him a nice tender offer. He'll make a lot more money than he did a year ago. Here's the intriguing thing for me. We're going to get to Tom Brady in just a second. Here's my prediction, Shanle, okay? I don't think the market is that great for Jameis Winston. Now, maybe he'll get a starting job in the next couple of days. But how about Jameis Winston as your backup quarterback in New Orleans if that market really dries up? Because they got to have a backup for Taysom to be third.
Mike, you took the words out of my mouth. And I have been critical of Jameis. We make fun of the 30 for 30. We talk about all those things. But are you kidding me? If you could get a former number one overall pick who has tons of games in his career as your backup quarterback, I think a lot of teams would want that. Having Jameis Winston sit in a room with Drew Brees, Sean Payton, learning how to take care of the football, because Sean Payton talks about every single second of the day. I think that would be my hope, is that Jameis Winston ends up being the backup quarterback, because I think if he can get things figured out, that's a nice bridge or a leap to the future, because you and I disagree on who the future franchise quarterback is. But I think Jameis Winston would be a great option as a backup quarterback if somebody doesn't sign him as a starter.
All right, we do disagree. We don't disagree on much, but if Jameis can get his act together, you like Jason. How about that? That's a nice way to go. Jameis's future over Taysom's future potentially in New Orleans if everything lines up. Maybe.
Yeah, well, yeah, definitely as a quarterback. I think Jameis, he can make a lot of the throws. It's the part where he short circuits and throws the ball to the other team way too much. If he can rein that in And I think working with Drew Brees and Sean Payton for a year or two would really help him. I think he definitely has more physical abilities throwing the ball than Taysom. Taysom is a much better football player. I don't want to take that away from him. I just don't know if he's a franchise quarterback in the NFL.
All right, let's get to Tom Brady. It's not official yet, and I think people in Tampa are excited. But I live in Tampa. I cover the Saints. It's kind of a unique perspective. I want to see Tom Brady at the podium shaking Bruce Arians' hand with a Buccaneer helmet in the background. I think it will happen, but the more the days go by and we don't see it happen, the Bucs have been left at the altar before by the likes of Bill Parcells and Bo Jackson and a lot of other people. Bill Walsh kind of flirted with them for a while. So I think that the fan base is excited, yet kind of want to see something in writing here. But Tom Brady, if he plays for the Bucs and Drew Brees and Tom Brady go at it, they're like, Brees is like 7 touchdowns ahead all time and all-time touchdown passes. We may see 2 primetime games with the Saints and the Bucs. I mean, the NFC South, we got Teddy Bridgewater in Carolina. How much fun is the NFC South, Shanle, potentially?
Oh, the NFC South is must-see TV. The storylines write themselves. It's going to be so much fun to watch it. We got screwed out of a Tom Brady, Drew Brees Super Bowl a couple years ago with the phantom non-call, and we'll get to see him play twice this fall. And I know it doesn't make Saints fans feel better because you always want the easiest path to getting the 1 seed and winning the NFC. But this is going to be entertaining. 2 of the greatest quarterbacks of all time going head-to-head, watching them play. It still doesn't seem right that Tom Brady would be in Tampa Bay, but you're right. This NFC South is going to be something to watch.
And I think Tom Brady fits in perfectly with the Bucs. I mean, he'll have Bruce Arians instead of Bill Belichick. That's like, having this strict math teacher, and all of a sudden you have your substitute for a year, and you get to have fun. And it's a credible substitute. It's a fun substitute. He's got Mike Evans. He's got Chris Godwin. Now, they got to address the running game, and they got to upgrade that offensive line. But to me, Tom Brady, please don't get Antonio Brown, by the way, Tampa. You have plenty of weapons. You have O.J. Howard, you have Cam Brate, you have the wide receivers. I think he fits in perfectly with this offense. You know what, Shanle? A lot of people talk about, Joe Namath, he went to the Rams, and Johnny Unitas went to the Chargers. No, Tom Brady won a Super Bowl 2 years ago. He led his team to the playoffs a year ago, and that was a Patriots team with no weapons on offense. This is not Unitas or Namath. This is not that at all.
Well, I'm gonna agree with you. Things that we agree on, then I'm going to rain on your parade there a little bit. Tom Brady.
Keep it real, brother.
Hey, neighbor, you and I agree. I think we both said Bruce Arians is the number one reason that Tom Brady went to Tampa. Nobody saw Tampa, but when you think about fits with a head coach, you're right. Bruce Arians, I think, was the determining factor. He's worked with some of the great quarterbacks, resurrected Carson Palmer's career late in his career in Arizona. So I think that's the number one reason. However, I will admit, I do feel like this has a feeling of Michael Jordan and the Washington Wizards a little bit, in my opinion.
Really?
I think it's just going to look weird. I don't know if they're going to have the success that a lot of people think. I mean, they're favored to win the Super Bowl, more likely to win the Super Bowl than the Patriots right now. I don't know. I don't know if that – just being honest, somebody showed a stat the other day. Jameis Winston and Tom Brady had the same QBR last year. If anybody watched Tom Brady play last year, he looked old. He looked a little slow. He looked slow twitchy, as a scout would say. I don't know. He's definitely an upgrade because a quarterback brings hope or despair to your team. He's going to bring hope. Everybody's going to play harder because they think they have a chance. But I don't know how much Tom Brady has left in the tank to get over the Saints and the NFC.
I will partially agree with you on this. Tom Brady better get protected because we saw Tom Brady not get protected the last year in New England. That Bucs offensive line gets paid a lot of money, but they're not that great. They're very average for the money they make. And one thing about Jameis Winston, and he's the fall guy, and they had a headline in the Tampa Bay Times this week with a picture of Brady throwing the ball, and the headline said, "Just be the anti-Jameis." Now, Jameis has made mistakes. There's no doubt about it. But Jameis, you know what, Shanle? Never had a great offensive line and never had a great running game. And you got to have that, especially if you're Tom Brady, because Tom Brady's used to having that great running game in New England. He's got to have that.
Absolutely. That is the great point that I think a lot of people need to take into consideration about this move is Tampa Bay's offensive line. I remember Cam Jordan running around those tackles wherever he lined up, like they weren't even standing there, like it was a pass rush drill. So if they don't protect an old quarterback who cannot run, it's still going to be long days in Tampa. So you're right. They have to upgrade that offensive line. But then when you start to look at the other segments of the offense, hey, Mike Evans is a great wide receiver. Godwin's a great wide receiver. O.J. Howard, the tight end, has been underperformer out of Alabama first-round pick. He's no Gronk. And where's their slot receiver? Where's their Edelman? And where's their Wes Welker, the guy who Brady works over the middle constantly. They need to find that weapon in their offense, because I think you're going to see basically Brady bring his offense to Arians and end up running it.
Would you bring in Antonio Brown if he behaved?
Would I? No,
Yes.
but I think there's a high likelihood, especially being in Florida, that he's just going to drive on over, and I think Tampa Bay is going to sign him.
We'll see what happens. Tommy may have said, you know what? I'm in if you bring in Antonio. He stayed at my house when he was a Patriot for about 48 hours or however long that was. That may be part of the deal. Let's see what happens with Tom Brady. That's real exciting stuff. Let's transfer things to Drew Brees. I teased this interview. It was good stuff from the Greg Hill Show, WEEI-FM. This was before Tom Brady signed with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And Justin, I know we have a couple cuts. Let's go to Drew Brees before Tom Brady signed with the Bucs, talking about Tom Brady's future in free agency.
I think all of us would probably have a hard time seeing Tom in any other jersey or uniform. But obviously, that's a decision for him and the organization. I can't speak for Tom, but I know for me, being at this stage in my career, I just want to win. I just want to win. I think Tom has been a guy who's kind of been the model for all of us for a lot of years. I don't think any of this is about money for Tom. I think it's about winning another championship. I also think it's probably about feeling like he's in a situation where he's got all the pieces in place to do that. So, again, I can't speak for him, but I know at this stage in the game and knowing his mentality to a degree, it's about winning a championship.
You know, Shanle, he's not speaking for him, but you know Brady agrees with Brees on a lot of that.
Oh, no question. And Tom finally got a contract, $30 million a year, like he deserves. And give credit to Drew for not asking for that. He allowed some money to be saved for the Saints to sign and make another run at it. But I think when you look at the whole Brady-Belichick scenario, Belichick was very praising of Brady when he left town recently. But there has to be a part of both those men that say, I want to see if I can win without him. And we're going to get that chance to see it this fall. And if somebody made me bet, I'd probably put the money on Belichick because of where Brady is age-wise. But I just think every player, no matter how much money you make, everybody just wants respect. Everybody wants respect from the people around them. And ultimately, would we have all loved to have been in that phone call between Belichick and Brady to see what was discussed, what was really said as they moved on?
Yeah,
both those guys, Brady and Brees, they're same point in their career. They're chasing each other in the records books. The one place I do disagree with Drew is him saying he wants to win another championship. Does Tampa give him the best chance? Is it the best road to get to a championship? Maybe he ran away from Kansas City. So we'll see this fall.
Yeah. It's funny, though, the way the NFC South schedule is, Mahomes is going to face Brady and Brees because the NFC South swing meets Kansas City this year. You know what? You mentioned, Belichick and Brady. It's funny, the dynamics, though, because you never felt that Brees wanted to be away from Sean Payton, and Sean Payton certainly doesn't want to be away from Drew Brees. There's a different relationship there, isn't there?
Yeah, those guys mutually respect one another. I think it's different because you can see a little bit of Belichick in the way Coach Payton runs his organization. Coach Payton respects the heck out of Bill, but there's also a softer side to Sean when it comes to family time and getting away from the game and having fun. And I think him and Drew see a lot of those things the same, eye to eye. And Belichick and Brady started as a rookie with Belichick, so he's had him the whole time. He's viewed him as kind of that young guy he brought in. I gave you an opportunity, 6th-round pick. Sean and Drew started at different points in their career, and they're both thankful for each other because it resurrected, Drew's career a little bit. So I think it's a different dynamic.
Yeah, it's funny with Brady, covering Brees for so many years and doing all the post-game interviews. I have a couple of memories that I don't know if I've ever told you this, Shanle, but one time we were doing a post-game show for CST, but when you were playing, and I was wrapping up, and I threw back to the studio, and we were kind of leaving, and my shoe was untied, so I bent over to tie my shoe, and some guy trips over me. And I look up, and it's Tom Brady. and he looked at me. He's like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, are you okay?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'm fine." He goes, "Sorry about that." And I'm like, "Well, I think more people would be worried if you were okay than me." And he started laughing. I remember another time we got done with Drew during a regular season game, and he looked up at me and he said, "Hey, can I go talk to Tom for a second?" And we were busy, and I said, "Oh, you mean?" Oh, and Tom and Giselle were there, and Tom was holding his son. And his son, Drew walks up to his son, and he's like, hey, And Brady, and I'm thinking that's probably the only kid in America that looks at Drew Brees and is like, hi, because he's used to Tom Brady as his dad. No offense to Drew, but it was just kind of a funny scene after a game. But I agree. Yeah, it's a different dynamic with obviously Peyton and Drew Brees than Brady and Belichick for sure. Well, let's talk about Drew Brees and his conversation with Greg Hill at WEEI in Boston. He talked about his future, and we've talked to Drew about his future many times, but this was kind of an interesting answer on how long he'll play and how he approaches his playing moving forward.
If you ask me how long do I think I could do this, I think I could do this to age 45 or beyond.
You do?
I'm 41 right now.
Yeah.
But there's other factors. It's not just a matter of can you do it. It's what are you sacrificing in order to be able to play this game and give it the time and dedication that it deserves. Because, man, even the off season, there is a lot of time and dedication to this. And then certainly once the season starts, man, it's like we get just lock ourselves up and go to work. It's a lot of time away from the family. There's a lot of sacrifice there. So I think for me, it's truly 1 year at a time.
Shanle, he brought up the 45 again. He brought it up. Hadn't brought up that number in a while. He brought it back up again.
Yeah, it kind of surprised me, but the determining factor, as soon as he mentions that family, that family will pull at your heartstrings as far as time, because the one thing about time is you can never get it back, and those kids will never go back to being the age they were had you retired at 42 or 43. So I get that part of it, and that part could be the determining factor, him walking away from the game at 43 or 44. But the other thing he mentioned is it takes so much time, and knowing Drew Brees and how competitive he is, and he said it, if you can't dedicate the time that you normally can, or you lose just a little bit of love for the game, it's time to walk away. And it sounds like he reevaluated that early in this offseason and said, hey, I can do this at least one more time, because some reports said that he had already retired at the Pro Bowl or thought about retiring. So there was something that swayed him, and maybe just a little bit of time off from the game re-energized him.
I have nothing to base this on besides the interview I had with him on the Pro Bowl that we had on our podcast. If you want to go back and listen to it, when he was adamant about how much he wanted to do television, passionate about how good he would be and what he could bring to the table, I will maintain, Shanle, that was before Romo re-up with CBS, and who knows the kind of talks that Peyton Manning's had with Monday Night Football. But I think something was on the table with Drew, or he thought maybe something was coming, because, yeah, I saw those reports too, and we've texted back and forth about him telling his teammates allegedly that he was going to retire at the Pro Bowl. I still think there was a TV deal. But to me, how about this? If Tom Brady goes to the Bucs, looks like he's going to. Drew Brees is in the NFC South. We know the competitors that these guys are. They may push each other till they're 50. I mean, how long are these guys? Is it going to be, hey, I'm not going to be the last man standing, you know?
It could be, especially they're both vying for a lot of records in the record book. I think we can all agree it's too late for Drew to catch him in the one that matters with the trophies, but that's going to keep him motivated, going head-to-head twice a year, vying for division championships. The media is going to go crazy. Like I said, the story's going to write themselves. So that's going to be a lot of fun. And it's something we all deserve to see two of the greatest quarterbacks ever go head-to-head, guaranteed twice a year.
All right, well, let's shift from the quarterbacks and the free agency to a subject I know that's near and dear to your heart. And one thing I appreciate about you, partner, is you've been great as an analyst on CST, and I knew you would be because you're honest. You're honest on social media, and you're honest on this podcast, and you're passionate about the collective bargaining agreement. I was frankly surprised that it was passed that easy, and I was really surprised that over 500 players didn't vote, because that really could have swayed it back and forth. And we've seen what has come of this. I mean, it's going to be a 17-game season. There's going to be more playoff games. What disturbs you about this CBA the most?
Well, I'm going to tell you almost the whole thing. There's one part of the CBA that doesn't disturb me, and that's the fact that guys who came before us get a bump in their pension. I think that's outstanding. I think it's great, and I think it's well-deserved. Besides that, everything else to me in the CBA is absolute garbage. These players sold out a 17th game for nothing. I mean, they got a bump in pay, but we just went through $1 billion lawsuit because the league hid what concussions did to you. So we go through this $1 billion lawsuit. We talk about player safety for the past 10 years. We have all these heads-up football programs to get youth to play football because the numbers have dropped, declined rapidly. And what do? We go get a 17th game. We don't increase insurance for any of the players, no medical. You still get your 5 years after you're done playing. I think this CBA is an absolute joke. I think our leadership is laughed at. There's a reason why the baseball and the NBA have a better union than the NFL. Our leader, D. Smith, somebody needs to give him an apple and a roadmap and send him off somewhere else because he has been absolutely horrible for the last CBA everybody made fun of. This one's even worse. Like I said, $1 billion lawsuit, a 17th game. I can remember for years we always said we will not give in a 17th game without getting a 50-50 revenue split. And they took 0.5 of a revenue split. It's a travesty, and the biggest travesty of this whole CBA is cutting benefits for disabled guys. And they made it much harder to qualify for future guys. These active players who voted yes don't realize how much they're going to get denied when they have issues later on in life. 2007, Congress got involved, told the NFL, you better start playing by the government's definition of disability, or there's going to be issues. We'll legislate something against you. And now they're trying to take that back. I've had teammates call me telling me they're going to have to move because they're cutting their disability payments. It's a travesty. It's a sham. And anybody who voted yes for it, I said this to a member that I talked to at the executive committee. If Dak Prescott plays under a franchise tag this year and gets a career-ending injury and can't qualify for disability, you should live with that on your head the rest of your life. There should not be franchise tags. None of that stuff should exist. I just don't get it.
Why do you think it passed so fast? Was there a change in leadership? I mean, you mentioned the DeMarcus, obviously, but the players, the union reps, I mean, it just seemed like it was almost it was too fast. Yeah, I mean, and then you have obviously everything that's going on in our country. Do you think maybe they should have tabled this for a while? I mean, I don't know. It just seemed like it was fast, Shanle. It happened too quick.
It was way too quick. You're a year and a half before. What type of person goes to the car dealership and just pays sticker price for the car? No, you don't offer anything. You don't counter. I mean, to me, DeMaurice Smith is the whole problem. This guy is a con artist. He sits in the suites with owners, with Robert Kraft. He hangs out with Roger Goodell. You are our union leader. I think the owners told him what they want, how they want it, when they want it, and DeMaurice Smith conveyed that to the union reps who are football players. Our player reps put in a lot of time, but they're not businessmen. They trust our leader, and I think he conned everybody. He pushed us out to a popular vote amongst all the players. Amongst players, 65% of the league is going to vote yes because they get a bump in pay. That's all they care about. Hey, I don't know. As a young player, maybe I won't even play next year. I got to take that extra money. Yeah. He knew exactly what he was doing, and that's the crime in this whole thing is the union leader took advantage of our union and our players.
When you look at Major League Baseball and the power of their union, I mean, the Houston Astros have this sign-stealing scandal. They don't even get punished because, frankly, I think the Major League Baseball commissioner was scared to punish them because he didn't want to have to go through the union. I mean, when you guys look at other sports, you got to be envious and and wonder, why can't we be that way? Is that a feeling to some degree?
No question. I think if you asked most players in the NFL, especially older players, as you mature and you understand more what the language means in the CBA, when you're 22 years old and you're on a day-to-day, year-to-year contract in football, you're not concerned about being 40 years old and about benefits. That's the advantage football has in making guys make rash decisions. And that's another one of my problems. I think you'll never see guaranteed contracts in football like in baseball and basketball. And the reason is the reason our game is so good and competitive is because guys play every week knowing it's an interview. You'll get cut if you don't play well. And that's why the NFL is so competitive and so good. But there's got to be some type of guarantees in insurance. There's got to be something to support guys when they walk away from the game and not just be commodities. And that's where our envy for basketball and baseball come in.
I remember the last CBA, it was almost ominous that, oh man, this is going to be a tough one. This is going to be tough. You had the concussion lawsuits, you had all of that. Why was that so much different than this one?
The last one, we went till, I remember going till, I believe, the first week of August before the season. We got locked out the entire OTAs. They didn't let us anybody in the facilities or any of that because we were negotiating the deal. And still people had an issue with that deal because we didn't get enough of the revenue pie. But there were a lot of improvements in that CBA and for 10 years. And a lot of people, and I agree with this, I don't understand why any of our CBAs are 10 years. There's so much that changes in that time. And the difference from the last CBA to this CBA is in the next 10 years, what if all 50 states allow gambling? What type of revenue share are you guys going to get as players from that? The language is more beneficial to the owners than the players over the next 10 years. It's just way too long. And And players were much more prepped this time. I heard from guys, active players, Richard Sherman, Russell Okung, Eric Reed have been loud voices against this CBA. They had been saving up for the past 2 years, getting ready for a fight, and then they just threw in the white towel and bowed out in the first round of the fight. So I don't know. The guys who sat in that room would know more than me, but I know there's a lot of active players, almost 50% of the players that are not happy with this deal.
And finally, before we get to our final segment, 17 games. I mean, 17 is an odd number, but it's just odd. I like you mentioned earlier, I never thought that would pass. But the fact that it passed and that quickly and being such a huge part of this, I know there are more playoff games. I know they cut the preseason by 1. But I thought, man, if you get 17, the preseason at least, Shanle, gets cut in half. I mean, I really am siding with the players on this because I see the unions and other leagues, and I am amazed how physical a game this is, that you don't have more protection, not only while you play, but after you play. I mean, the 17 games, though, I mean, how is that going to take effect? I mean, I like what Bruce Arians said when asked about it, I think at the Combine. He said, well, who's going to get the home game? I mean, that's just going to be that's going to be a tricky thing with the schedule every year moving forward now.
It's not good for a few reasons. Just think, you watch teams that are out of the playoff race in December. They got their bags packed. They do not play competitive football. There's more blowouts. Teams are going to be out of the playoff race even earlier now. So you're going to see worse football later in the season. But more so than that, 17 games increases the likelihood of injuries. There's going to be more injuries. Guys' careers are going to be cut shorter. And guess what? Hey, we made it more difficult for you to qualify for disability should you suffer injuries. It's a horrible deal all the way around. I can't believe that it went through. 17 games, I'm telling you, Mike, was always the ultimate bargaining chip, and the players just threw it in the middle of the table with disregard for anything else. I can't believe that they didn't get more back for that 17th game.
Well, I knew you'd have candid opinions on this, and you delivered. Great stuff from you, Shanle, and I feel for the players in this. I'm definitely on your side, and we'll see how this plays out moving forward. But, Justin, you know what time it is. More likely, baby. We haven't done this in a couple weeks. 'Tis the off season a little bit, but we have a lot to get to. We touched on a lot of free agent stuff. Sometimes I change my more likelies during the podcast. You want to kind of keep up to date a little bit, but we always have Justin go first. He's the lead blocker for Shanle. I know he enjoys that quite a bit, but we're going to bring Justin back in the fold. I think such an interesting quarterback carousel in this free agency, and you have two guys who are really about the same age. People think that Teddy Bridgewater is a lot older than Jameis Winston. He's a year older than Jameis Winston. But who has the brighter future, more likely, if you would put the crystal ball on, Jameis Winston or Teddy Bridgewater, Justin Thomas?
Oh, that's a really good question.
We're throwing the heat right away,
Seriously.
man. We're bringing it.
I think who has a brighter future, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think Teddy. It's really close. I think Jameis is more athletically gifted, but if Teddy can continue to show that he can take care of the ball, manage the game well, I could see him being more successful. I mean, you just got to go on the fact alone that Teddy was able to get a starting position, and we still haven't heard even anyone interested in taking Jameis. So I guess more teams see more optimism with Teddy Bridgewater. I think if Jameis could somehow fix a turnover situation, and we all thought that might happen with him and Bruce Arians, I could see Jameis maybe turn around, having a better future. But for now, since I don't think that's likely, I'm going to go with Teddy.
In the span of a year, Shanle, Justin has turned into Todd McShay, man. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable, man.
I was just going to say, Justin took the words right out of my mouth. I was pretty much going to say the exact same thing. The way you term it, Mike, who has a brighter future, you always have to go with stability. And Teddy has stability. He's got a new coach. He's got Joe Brady, who's familiar with him. He's got stability. He's the man. They just locked him down. They're going to give him the benefit of the doubt. So he has the brighter future near term, but if you maybe look out 7 to 10 years, I think I'm going to go with Jameis. I think Jameis is a more talented player. Teddy, when he took the Saints on that undefeated win streak, the defense was amazing, and everybody played great around him. And I think Teddy needs that. I don't think, to me, a franchise quarterback can carry a team no matter what's around him. It's
Teddy's
not a knock. It's not a knock on Teddy. I don't think he can do that, but he's a really good player and a really good quarterback and a good leader and will be respected. To me, if Jameis Winston goes to New England or the LA Chargers, I'll have to say Jameis.
Wow. Teddy did not win that game in Seattle. Teddy did not win that game in Jacksonville this year. It was the defense, and Kamara had a big game in Seattle, but he was steady, Teddy. And you're right, we kind of know the ceiling with Teddy Bridgewater. We don't know the ceiling with Jameis Winston. Boy, if he can cure his ills, man, the ceiling is so high. Selfishly, I want Jameis Winston, and it won't happen now. We had Frank Caliendo kind of lead the show. But, boy, I'd love to see Jameis in Las Vegas with John Gruden, where Chucky's head would spin around about 80 times during the year. We'd throw him in Hard Knocks, man. We have Jameis and Gruden in Hard Knocks. Sign me up. But, yeah, I think the ceiling for Jameis is higher. We kind of know what we have with Bridgewater. But interesting that, a lot of people think Bridgewater's a lot older, but they're about the same age. So it's an interesting dynamic there.
And Mike, none of us in the entire world have seen the ultimate X factor that is going on with Jameis Winston. The man had LASIK.
Yes.
He can see now. He can see.
Jameis is like, come on, Bucs fans, I can see now. Bring me back. Can you imagine, though, if Brady leaves him at the altar and they're like, Jameis, so you want to come back and be our starter?
Mike, I was going to bring that up because it gets more eerie the longer this goes on that Tom Brady is not showing up. He's not signing. Obviously, he can't show up. But it hasn't been put in stone because I'm going to make this point about L.A. I think L.A. is still trying to go after him. They just signed Chris Harris, a DB. They signed Trey Turner, a guard, Brian Bulaga from the Packers, an offensive lineman. I think the Chargers are going all in and still trying to persuade Brady, so it could get interesting.
They really could, and it would be so Bucs if this happens. Yeah, it's so Bucs. Unbelievable. All right, well, speaking of the Bucs, free agency is still early, but the Saints still, even if the Bucs get Brady, I like the Saints as your favorites in the NFC South. Brees has more, as Shanle likes to say, shiny new toys, as he used to call the Bucs. But you know what? The shiny toys in New Orleans actually perform and live up to their potential. But with that said, after the first week in free agency, I think the Saints are still a great pick to win it all in the NFC. Who scares you the most after seeing the pivotal first week of free agency? Justin, the Bucs, now with Brady potentially, the Cowboys have brought all their guys back and they're going to be loaded, or the Niners, who are still the Niners?
I'm definitely intrigued by Brady going to Tampa, but I don't think him alone means that they're going to all of a sudden be a really good team. Who knows? I might be eating my words 6 months from now, but I'm intrigued by the Cowboys. I think we said this not long ago that the one thing the Cowboys seemed to be lacking was a really good head coach. He could get them to the playoffs, but he could never seem to get them further deep in the playoffs. So I'm curious to see what's going to happen now that Jason Garrett's gone. Still, though, the 49ers just look like a complete team. They've kept everyone. They haven't even really made any free agent acquisitions. And I think that just goes to show because they have a really good core. I think the 49ers are still the team to beat.
And they're loading up on draft picks, too. I like what their front office is kind of like the Saints, where they prepare guys to replace other guys who are leaving. And that's a sign of a good franchise. But Shanle, are you scared of the Cowboys, the Bucs, or the Niners? If you're not scared of any of them, who scares you the most?
I'm not scared of really anybody because I still think the Saints, health-wise, may become the team to beat in the NFC. The tough games, their schedule's tough, but they play all those teams at home in the Superdome. That's a huge advantage. But to me, I'm interested to see how Mike McCarthy turns around the Dallas Cowboys. If anything changes there, I'm not scared of anybody in the NFC East, really. What interests me is this NFC West. Every year, you see a couple years ago it was the Rams. Last year was the Niners. I think Seattle is a good team. They're making some good moves. The NFC to me is wide open, but I would put the Saints at the top of the NFC with no real true competitor who I think it's going to come down to. It's going to emerge late in probably October.
We've talked about the Saints being the favorites. I just still go back to that dang Vikings game. How they lose that at home? But anyway, I mean, that was the team, but the window is still open for one more year, and I like the fact that the defense, the Anyamadas, the Alonzos, you're bringing back really underrated guys who are going to be a pivotal part of that football team. Then you bring back guys like Malcolm Jenkins. I mean, I guess what I'm saying is I love what they've done in free agency so far, and they still have some room. And then the draft's coming up, and they're going to have to add another wide receiver to help out Michael Thomas. So the offense to me is only going to get that much better. I think out of all those, I still say the Niners too. Even if the Bucs have Brady, the Bucs running game is terrible. The Bucs offensive line is overrated. I think Brady's going to get banged up a little bit. And the Cowboys, you got to show me, man. I'm tired of talking about the Cowboys. The Niners have proven. I think they're viable. I think they've proven they're stable too. I like their front office. I like what they have going on there. So I would say the Niners. Okay, we're not making any light of the coronavirus, but replacing narrative and optics is social distancing. We have to social distance ourselves. You know what? We can still podcast. I mean, Justin's in Utah, Shanley's in Dallas, I'm in Tampa. We're social distancing. But because we're social distancing, what have you done that's benefited your life the most, that you've kind of made the most of your time via social distancing? And you can go off the board if you want. Has it been, reading a book or maybe books that you've been putting off? Is it, cleaning, yard work or upgrades on your house? Or could it be Netflix? Could it be movies or shows? Or it could be anything. But we're going to be at this for a while, it looks like. But maybe so far, in terms of social distancing, more likely, how have you made your life better, Justin Thomas?
Well, what's interesting is I work from home, and pretty much all the things you mentioned as potential answers I had already done. So if anything, I'm just doing those things and more of it. I will say this, though. This has really made me realize how valuable getting out of the house truly is. I mean, like I said, working from home, I really enjoyed the small times I did get out. And now that it's even harder and you got to be careful about when you go out, you're limiting the amount of times you go out. It really has been tough. I don't know. That's a good question. There's anything new I've done or anything that I've valued more, so to speak. I guess I'm just doing all those things and more of it.
All the above. What about you, Mr. Shanle?
It's pretty simple for me, especially having young kids. I think this time has made it feel a little bit more like old times. We still have internet. We still have things that keep us busy in the house. But I think spending this time with my kids, they don't have all these activities to go to. They don't have all these different functions, sports, all these things. We're all home. We're all spending more time together. I feel like I've learned a lot of things about all three of my kids just by spending more time with them. So the silver lining to me has been just being locked up and not being able to go spread my time throughout all these different activities, dropping kids off, going to friends' house. We're kind of forced to be together and learn about one another while living in this technological age of having gadgets and internet. But it's been fun as far as that goes.
Yeah, you try to make the most of all this. And I know, in terms of our jobs, Justin, I own a company where we do events and we do sports, and all of that has been shut down. So you got to get creative a little bit in how you create things in terms of your business. And I have a great deal of sympathy for people who own restaurants or own businesses. I mean, that's the one thing we go back to from the beginning of the show is, we're all in this together. I mean, it's not like it's a hurricane in New Orleans or it's a earthquake in San Francisco. I mean, we're all dealing with this from coast to coast. So it's kind of crazy. But I will say, I have this great neighbor who's really handy, and he's helped me fix some things around my house. So I've tried to make myself useful in that respect. And one day, guys, I want to run a full marathon, and the gym is closed now. And Shanle, you know how I love Max Day, my friend. Yeah, I can't do Max Days anymore. So I ran my first half marathon. One day I want to run a full marathon, and it's made me run more. So goals, you guys set goals, Shanle. It's part of life.
Oh, absolutely. And that's that anybody, no matter what age you are, I tell people all the time, I've spoken to some schools about being a young kid growing up in a small town, playing 8-man football. If I didn't have goals, I would have never ended up where I am. And we all need goals to strive for, to wake up every day, just be a little bit better than you were the day before. And something like this sometimes resets everybody, reboots everybody, makes everybody realize what's important in life. And so you always try to take the silver lining out of a bad situation.
Yeah. Well, listen, I thought that was one of our most complete podcasts. Obviously, we wish the best for everybody listening. Hopefully this helps you kill some time, and we're all trying to kind of kill time these days, but we covered it all. I mean, we led off with Caliendo. We talked Saints free agency. We had Drew Brees on Tom Brady. We talked CBA, some passionate stuff there from Scott Shanle. We end with more likely, but check us out. Where are we at on Twitter, Justin? What's our handle?
@DoneDad Podcast.
at Done Dat Podcast. And I will put a poll question up this week, so please weigh in on that. We're on all the platforms. Please rate the podcast. Let us know what you would like on the podcast, and subscribe. We're on all the platforms. We're on Podbean. We're on Spotify. We're on Google+. We're on everything. So iTunes, everything. So just check us out. Been There, Done That Podcast. We wish everybody well. For my partners, Justin Thomas and Scott Shanle, I'm merely Mike Nabors. We'll talk to you soon.